Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. So we are flying solo this evening as everybody's busy. Everyone's got a life except for old Clay Dog here. We now the wife is out of town. She's in Chicago right now. We're right outside of Chicago. I'm here with the pups, and the boys are taking the night off. So we're just going to get in here and talk a little football, talk a little a little betting odds on awards this year, and not from a sense of, hey, let's try to predict who's going to win and give betting advice, but just kind of look at how some of these Green Bay Packers may be seen in the public eye, or more specifically, how Vegas sees them. Hopefully everybody's having an awesome day out there. I see the chat is absolutely on fire already. If you guys would hit that like button on the way in, we appreciate you making us a part of your Saturday festivities here, man. This weekend's going by so fast. So want to give a shout out to the giveaway that we're going to be doing here at the 1st of July. It's going to run all through the month of June. I want to give a shout out to the My Autism Connection, Inc., building hope, community, and independence for autistic adults. We're going to be giving away an autographed Dorsey Levens jersey in honor of them. Basically, you go to my Twitter account at Packers_access. You'll see a tweet pinned at the top of the page. You'll notice a link there that says givebutter.com/KRPSJ5. For every $5 that's donated, your name will be entered into the contest one time. So we got a lot of people that's already donated. Appreciate y'all supporting a great cause there. What we're going to do is take all those names and the duplicate names and compile them and put them on the wheel of names. We're going to spin that sucker and give away this awesome autographed Dorsey Levens jersey. All right. So we're going to be doing that. Like I said, it's going to run through the month of June. We'll give it away at the beginning of July. So appreciate everybody supporting a great cause there. Let's jump into the show tonight, man. Let's get into it. As we've got, first and foremost, let's hit the regular season MVP. If you guys weren't in the other night, we talked about the Super Bowl odds, betting odds for Super Bowl champion, the Green Bay Packers coming in at a plus 2,000. We also talked about the NFC champion run there. They are, I think, fifth on the list here at a plus 1,000. So you can kind of look at that and say, okay, they're considered the fifth best team in the NFC as it sits right now. There's a lot of different ways you can look at it, strength of schedule, different metrics you can use. You guys know how I feel about strength of schedule. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to strength of schedule, to be honest with you, because it's amazing. That's going into the season. We talk about strength of schedule and everybody, they got an easy schedule. And then halfway through the season, nobody even talks about it anymore because the teams have changed so much. The coaching staffs have already made adjustments to the game plans. There's already been 2 or 3 key injuries for specific teams, and everything kind of goes out the window. So I try not to spend a whole lot of time on that stuff, but I do like looking at the betting odds and just kind of seeing where the sharp money is. Now, NFC North Division winner, again, a quick recap. The Packers are predicted to finish second there. Detroit Lions are plus 135. The Packers are plus 260. Then you got the Vikings at plus 360. And no surprise, the Bears are at plus 450. Now, let's get into the MVP. We're going to talk about Offensive Player of the Year. We're going to talk about Offensive Rookie of the Year. And what I did was try to find some of these awards where Green Bay Packers players were specifically mentioned. So starting with regular season MVP here, Lamar Jackson is the favorite to win MVP at a plus 550. Then it's Joe Burrow plus 600 along with Josh Allen plus 600. Obviously, Josh Allen winning the MVP last year. Patrick Mahomes coming in at plus 700 with Jaden Daniels plus 700. That one kind of took me off guard a little bit. Now, listen, I'm a big Jaden Daniels fan, a big Jaden Daniels believer. I think he's the real deal. I could also see him taking a step back like C.J. Stroud did last year. But nonetheless, Jalen Hurts, it drops off significantly here to a plus 1,600 for Jalen Hurts. Justin Herbert, a plus 1,800. And then you got our very own Jordan Love, plus 2,500. And he is tied with Brock Purdy, Caleb Williams, C.J. Stroud in that tier there at plus 2,500. So the reason I wanted to bring that up is, how does Vegas see Jordan Love projecting this year? When you look at it, I want to say the over under the other night, I can't remember the exact number, but it kind of caught us off guard a little bit when we were talking about it with Jacob. But essentially what this is saying is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th projected player to potentially win the MVP this year. Now, all those are quarterbacks, right, leading the way. It looks like the first running back comes in with Saquon Barkley at a plus 4,000, and that's the only running back that made the list here in terms of MVP candidates from a betting standpoint. So, again, they're treating Jordan Love as a top 10 quarterback, right? Now, this is where I got to back up a little bit, and you guys know how I feel about this. I think Jordan Love is kind of the floor is right around the 15 mark, maybe the 13 mark. And I think the ceiling could be top 3. So the fact that they've got him right there in that spot, that kind of meets that sweet spot of where I've got him somewhat sitting. So I don't have a problem with that number there. I want to know what you guys think in the chat. Let me know. Do you think that's too high for Jordan Love, too low for Jordan Love? Pretty much projecting him to be what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think 8th. Yeah, in the MVP running here. What do you guys think in the chat? Do you think that's too high or too low for Jordan Love? Now, obviously, it's going to come down to the weapons around these players. Lamar Jackson is just a highlight reel. We talked about it last year. He should have won the Super Bowl last year. Or not the Super Bowl, but the MVP last year. I don't know how Josh Allen won the MVP over him. I really, really don't. But it is what it is. You look at Lamar Jackson and what he did throwing the football. Shoo-wee, man. He was on fire last year. Holmes MD1 says, a touch too low in my opinion. Okay, I got you. So I don't want to put words into Holmes' mouth, but he's probably thinking top 5-ish, right? Is probably be the sweet spot there. Coach Lynn says seems about right. I think that's kind of where I sit, Coach, because again, you're talking about how good a player can be. You're talking about ceiling. You're talking about floor. This is right there in the middle of where I think Jordan Love could be for sure. Greg Rice says, Clayton, I was told there would be no math. Sorry about that, buddy. Sorry about that. Clint says he'll be better this year. I completely agree with that. He's going to be able to utilize that leg, right? Be able to drive the football. Also be able to create plays with his legs, moving out of the pocket. I think they'll be under center a lot more, running a little more boot scheme, a little more play action. That's going to make the running game even more effective, in my opinion, especially with duo. So, yeah, I think Jordan Love is going to be better this year. Now, the question is how much better, right? And to me, people immediately start thinking yardage. They start thinking touchdown passes. They start thinking rushing yards. For me, it's that turnover differential, man. It's protecting the football, not throwing interceptions. That's what's going to determine whether the Packers take the next step in this whole rebuild process, which I personally think the Super Bowl window is open. I really do. And yeah, as you could see over the last few days and really over the last week, a lot of injuries that weren't mentioned as much during the season have kind of unfolded here, and the veil has been lifted, and you find out that you had people like Kenny Clark battling an injury since week 1. We knew about Jordan Love and the 3 injuries he dealt with. We already knew about Jaden Reed. We kind of talked about that a little earlier in the offseason. You had Lucas Van Ness that had to deal with that broken thumb, right? A lot of different things coming into factor there. And then you had obviously Jair Alexander. It's amazing how the Jair Alexander talk, it goes from we can't win a ball game without him to we don't need him, cut him, right? And obviously the truth is somewhere in the middle usually. And the reality is we did pretty damn good without him last year. The defense took a step forward. With that being said, the defense was better with him on the field, but that's just kind of how I see that whole situation there. So Coach Lynn talks about the talent around him. Yeah, and that's a big factor in these, right? And that's the thing. Like you look at Joe Burrow, right, at a plus 600. He's got the second best odds to win MVP. We all know the reality is if one of his top receivers go down, like if Jamar Chase goes down with a season-ending injury, you could pretty much kiss that MVP goodbye, right? Like, yeah, it's most likely not going to happen. So a lot of luck goes into these as well. Like with Josh Allen, it's a little bit different, obviously, with the ability to run the football. It was the rushing touchdowns, I think, that kind of sent him over the edge for MVP last year. But again, I still think looking at what Lamar Jackson did, now I know people aren't talking about it enough because I had no clue he had that kind of year, to be honest with you. If Jordan Love had the year that Lamar Jackson had, man, Packers probably would have won 15 games. He had that solid of a year for sure. So again, Jordan Love coming in 8th at plus 2,500 with the MVP race there, regular season MVP. Let's go on to Offensive Player of the Year. And you guys know this is kind of that award that's for players that are not quarterbacks, right? Now, you'll see people like Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, some of the bigger names. They'll sneak in here as well. I think it is kind of silly how this stuff's voted on. I don't know all the inner workings of it, but it just seems like, okay, MVP is set aside for mostly quarterback. Offensive Player of the Year, the rule is, okay, let's try not to allow a quarterback to win this award. It's just weird how the voting works on that. But nonetheless, Offensive Player of the Year, Saquon Barkley plus 650, Jamar Chase plus 900, Jahmyr Gibbs plus 1,200, Nico Collins and Puka Nacua both at plus 1,600, Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson, Bijan Robinson all at plus 1,800, Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Actually, no, just Christian McCaffrey and CeeDee Lamb are at plus 2,000. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyreek Hill, with Amon-Ra St. Brown being plus 2,500, Tyreek Hill plus 3,000. Then we got our very own Josh Jacobs at plus 3,500. So when you kind of go through there and let's zero in on the running backs themselves. Okay. So you got Saquon Barkley 1, Jahmyr Gibbs 2, Derrick Henry 3, Bijan Robinson 4, Christian McCaffrey 5. And then you've got Josh Jacobs in the number 6 spot in terms of running backs that are in the running for Offensive Player of the Year. So you kind of catch the theme of what I'm looking at here, right? Is like where are these Green Bay Packers ranking, and positionally, let's kind of see where they're projected to finish this year. Now, do I think Josh Jacobs has a realistic shot to win Offensive Player of the Year? I honestly don't, because I don't think Matt LaFleur wants to run him into the ground. I think if the ultimate goal is Super Bowl, then the last thing you need, or the last thing you can have happen, is Josh Jacobs get banged up because you're overusing him, right? And I know in the past that was the big argument with Aaron Jones, like, hey, he needs to get more carries. But the reality is, how many times did Aaron Jones get hurt? Even when he was healthy, it's like, okay, we should have got him more carries, and then 2 or 3 weeks later he's banged up. So I don't think Josh Jacobs has a realistic chance of winning, or I don't want to say a realistic chance. I don't think he has a big chance of winning Offensive Player of the Year, but it's only because I don't think he'll get as many carries as he did last year. I think we'll kind of shift focus a little bit there. But nonetheless, it's nice to see him right there hovering around that top 5 mark when it comes to the running backs that are mentioned in here on this list. So trying to see on down the line, there's no more Packers listed there. You get the first quarterback coming in for Offensive Player of the Year at Joe Burrow plus 4,000, and Lamar Jackson along with Josh Allen as well, all those at a plus 4,000. So let's see here. Respect Oranges. Nope, we need Lloyd here to help Wilson with carries. Yeah, and see, that's the other thing too, is like you want to go ahead and get Lloyd acclimated to this system. You want to get him as many carries as possible. I'll tell you what I look forward to. I look forward to a handful of games this year that hopefully, the Green Bay Packers jump out to a big lead and you get Marshawn Lloyd some mop-up time. That would be great. Maybe in the fourth quarter, you get to pull Jordan Love, get Malik Willis out there, preferably before the trade deadline. Who knows? If you get Malik Willis in there and he continues to do what he did last year, you may have somebody come calling. That could happen. You guys know how I feel about that. Anything less than a second-round pick, I'd rather have Malik Willis as the backup just to know, okay, we're good there. If Jordan goes down, we can win tough ball games. So going to be fun to see how all that unfolds as well. Holmes says, if Lloyd can stay healthy and does not fumble, heck, yeah. I'm with you on that. United Base says, my vote is for Henry. He made a bet with Adam Sandler. If he gets 2,000 yards, he will be in the movie. That's absolutely awesome. Looking forward to when is Happy Gilmore dropping, guys? Happy Gilmore 2. I got to watch. Even if it sucks, that's one I've got to watch, just out of respect for the game, out of respect for Adam Sandler and the original, obviously, was just a phenomenal movie. Clint, the armchair quarterback, says the price is wrong, Bob. That's all right. I want to say it's dropping in July, Bates. If you can let me know in the chat just to confirm. There it is, July 25th. That's what I was thinking, somewhere around that time. I did see something drop where Eminem's in it. That was kind of funny, seeing him making a cameo appearance there. So that's kind of cool. All right, let's move on to Offensive Rookie of the Year. Okay. No surprise here. Ashton Gianti leading the way at a plus 275. Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick, coming in second at plus 350. Then it drops off pretty significantly with Travis Hunter at a plus 900. All right. Tyler Shough, plus 1,000. How about that, guys? How about Tyler Shough? I'm really proud of the fact that Tyler Shough was drafted as high as he was, because I feel like we were talking about it earlier than most people were. And it's not because I watched the tape and decided Tyler Shough's going to be an NFL quarterback. It's because Greg Cosell was just raving over him. And when I heard Greg Cosell talking about Tyler Shough, it's like, okay, there has to be something here. And then immediately following that podcast with Ross Tucker, where he was kind of raving over Tyler Shough, all of a sudden he said, in the next show, he said, I got several text messages from executives across the league going, you're spot on. He's the real deal type thing. So now whether he goes on to the NFL and plays well, only time will tell, right? But Tyler Shough being the second quarterback with the highest Offensive Rookie of the Year chances at a plus 1,000, pretty darn telling there. Tet McMillan coming in at a plus 1,100. You guys remember when Tet McMillan fell? Or leading up to the draft, it was just all of a sudden, nobody liked Tet McMillan. Oh, he doesn't like to watch tape and blah, 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 blah. And then ends up getting drafted high. And now obviously he's right here towards the top. You know, if you want to consider Travis Hunter more of a cornerback than a wide receiver, Tet McMillan's the top wide receiver at plus 1,100. He could be second if the Jacksonville Jaguars decide to use Travis Hunter as a wide receiver more than a corner. Next, you got Omarion Hampton plus 1,300. And then look at this, guys, Shedeur Sanders, plus 1,500. I think a lot of what that has to do with Shedeur Sanders is low expectations, right? He sunk out of sight in the draft when he fought to the 4th or the 5th round, whatever it was, went to Cleveland. Nobody's expecting him to, I don't think, win that job over Dillon Gabriel or any other quarterback that's already in that room. But on top of that, I don't think they expect Cleveland to be in a good enough position, for them to do anything successful. So Shedeur Sanders comes in, and all of a sudden they win more games than they're projected. I don't know what their win-loss total is projected-wise, but I could see it being one of those things where it's like, wow, look at what he did with Cleveland, and how bad Cleveland is. Just something to think about there. Next, you got Quinshon Judkins, running back out of Ohio State, at a plus 1,800. R.J. Harvey plus 2,000. Travion Henderson plus 2,200. It's pretty wild. Quinshon Judkins and his teammate, Travion Henderson, are just 2 spots apart, right? Plus 1,800 to a plus 2,200. Then you got Emeka Egbuka. You guys know I was very, very vocal about Egbuka. I would love to have had him there in the first round with the Packers' first-round pick. But obviously we landed on Matthew Golden. Pretty cool that both of those are a plus 2,200. So Matthew Golden, Green Bay Packers, first wide receiver selected in the first round since 2002, comes in with the Offensive Rookie of the Year odds at a plus 2,200. Everybody fire off in the chat real quick. Too high or too low on that? How do you feel about that? Because when you look at Matthew Golden, we just got through talking about Shedeur Sanders and how, hey, look, he's got an opportunity to win that starting job from Dillon Gabriel or whoever else is in that quarterback room. And you can kind of come screaming from the back of the pack. Matthew Golden, I mean, if he does everything, he don't even have to do everything correct. If he maximizes his opportunities and he plays decent throughout camp, throughout starting next week with mini camp, right? That's coming up here on the 10th, mandatory mini camp. If he starts to turn heads, he goes into training camp and he puts on a show there. I could see Matt LaFleur going, okay, you know what? Let's put him out here on the edge. Let's put him in the Z. Let's put him in the X from time to time. Let's let him stretch the field. Let's let him be that Christian Watson burner, right? If you go that route, I love putting low amounts of money on Green Bay Packer bets where it's like, all right, man, let's just take a handful of them, sprinkle a little action on it where it's like, first of all, you never bet a dime that you can't afford to lose. I'm going to say that again. Never bet a single cent that you can't afford to lose. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. When I gamble, when I put action on a game, when I put action on any kind of prop or anything, and I personally like live betting games, I just absolutely love it. I am of the mindset that I am giving this money to this sports book. All right. That's how I do that. I don't go in there and go, okay, well, if I put 5 or 6 here, I'll definitely hit on one. Let's bet the farm. Let's spread it all out. That's no. That's how you end up divorced and living in a ditch. All right. Let's just gamble responsibly, please. But what I like to do is find multiple bets like this where it's pretty darn good odds and put a little bit of action on each of them. And it gives you some extra rooting interest for that player, you know? And in some cases, I like to try to find somebody in the AFC as well. Like in this case, Ashton Gianti, the odds aren't that good. But when you look at the bad odds down here, like, you know, if Pittsburgh hadn't signed Aaron Rodgers, I'd be looking at Will Howard. Pretty sure he went to Pittsburgh. That would be a fun one at a plus 4,000. Like, you never know, right? Our boy Jaden Higgins, Tim's boy Jaden Higgins, right? You know, Dylan Gabriel, that might be one. Like, look at Shedeur Sanders plus 1,500. Then you look at Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel was drafted higher than Shedeur Sanders. Dylan Gabriel's coming in at plus 6,000. Maybe sprinkle a little action in on that, right? You guys know how I felt about Jalen Milroe. Now, he ended up going, where did he go to? Remind me, guys. Was it Seattle? I'm trying to think. Where was it that Jalen Milroe ended up being drafted? I'm trying to think. Let me Google it real quick. It's going to bother me. If somebody gets it up in the chat, throw it up there real quick. Dylan Gabriel. Where is he at? Not Dylan Gabriel. I'm sorry, not Dylan Gabriel. What am I doing? Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe is who I was thinking of. Sorry. Got too many quarterbacks on the brain. Yeah, Seattle. That's right. Yeah, Seahawks. Thank you, Bates. That's one. They got Sam Darnold, right, is the starting quarterback. Keep your eye on that one because at a plus 6, what if Sam Darnold goes down? Is it worth it to risk just a little sprinkle on that one? It could be. It could be. I think Jalen Milroe's a freak. I really do. The reason his numbers took a dip last year is because he didn't connect on the deep ball like he did in 2023. And Jalen Milroe he's everything you want in a quarterback and a leader. Some people question the processing with the interceptions he threw last year, and I can understand that. But if the right quarterback coach gets a hold of him, I would not be surprised if they struck gold there in Seattle for on down the road, obviously. But anyway, Matthew Golden at plus 2,200. I'm excited about that. I think that would be worth sprinkling a little bit on. Because, again, like Ashton Gianti, yeah, he could run away with it. He's going to be the focal point with the Raiders. But you never know, guys. You know, I mean, especially if they run a young guy into the ground too, right? Cam Ward, does he have enough tools around him in Tennessee? Travis Hunter, can his body take the beating that it's going to take playing both sides of the ball to whatever extent they decide to do that? Tyler Shuck, Tet McMillan. I think it'd be worth it to sprinkle a little bit there on Matthew Golden for sure. So, anyway. There he is, Matthew Golden. I think it's pretty cool. That's the first time in a while, it feels like, that we had a player in the running that high anyway for Offensive Rookie of the Year. You know, I was thinking maybe Christian Watson. Could have been Jaden Reed. Could have been Jaden Reed too. I don't think he would have been quite that high with Jaden Reed being drafted in the second round. So, nonetheless, how many receivers are over top of Matthew Golden here? Let's count Travis Hunter as one just for craps and giggles here. Travis Hunter 1, Tet McMillan 2, Emeka Egbuka 3, Matthew Golden 4. So he is the 4th best odds to win Offensive Rookie of the Year amongst wide receiver. That's a pretty good place to be. Pretty darn good place to be. And all the reports coming out of camp got me excited. Jordan Love used the word polished. He looked really polished. Right. Romeo Dobbs was speaking very glowingly of him. You know, it's going to be fun to see what Matthew Golden does. He's definitely got the right attitude. There's no two ways about that. All right, moving along. Comeback Player of the Year. I'm going to rattle these off without the odds real quick. Okay. Yeah, we'll do them in order. Dak Prescott, Aiden Hutchinson, Christian McCaffrey, Trevor Lawrence, J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy for Comeback Player of the Year. Am I the only one that thinks that's just absolutely silly that he's in the running for Comeback Player of the Year? He didn't play a single snap last year, and he gets hurt, and they're going to list him as a potential Comeback Player of the Year. Like, when I hear comeback, I think, a player who has played in the league, right, and taking a decent amount of snaps. They've had a setback, and then they have a comeback. How can you come back from something you never had? Like that's a little weird to me. I don't know. Am I wrong there, guys? Let me know in the chat. It seems strange. Like because he got hurt as a rookie and didn't see any action, they're saying he could win comeback player of the year. That's just yeah. Looks like Greg Rice agrees. It's just really weird, right? It's strange. I don't know. Yeah, he says JJ McCarthy should not be there, as you say. Yeah, it's I don't know. United Bates, I agree, Clay. I think Hutch has a great shot at this. I think you're spot on there, man. Aiden Hutchinson, my God. Now, here's the thing, though. I haven't paid attention to the reports, and in no way, shape, or form am I wishing ill will on Aiden Hutchinson or any other player. I don't care how much I hate the team, hate the fan base. I would never wish injury or a setback for any player, right, in football. Well, that being said, Aiden Hutchinson, man, that was a nasty injury. And it seems like everybody's just kind of assuming, he's just going to be right back to where he was. I mean, this wasn't like an ACL, right? This wasn't it wasn't even just a broken, like he shredded that leg. I remember that thing looking like linguine. And I don't mean to make light of the situation, and we're just all kind of assuming it's not just Bates. It was me too. Like when I seen, like, yeah, that makes sense. And I keep having to step back and I see the image. You guys know what I'm talking about, that screen grab on Twitter where his leg was wrapped around the other guy's leg in the opposite direction, right? It's just, I don't know, man. That's going to be a tough comeback, I would imagine. Coach Lynn says Hutch does not look the same to me. I don't know how anybody could, man. That reminds me of when I was a kid. I have a very, very fuzzy memory. Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. You have these memories from childhood where it's like around a certain age. I think I was about 4 or 5. One of my earliest memories there was a bad accident on what we called the new road back home, back in the sticks. And they called it that because, it was the road that was created to make traffic flow a little bit easier from the old road. So we had the old road and the new road. I don't know, maybe you guys have the same thing in your small towns, but anyway, on the new road, there was a bad accident. My parents stopped, and I remember it vividly. My mom holding me and seeing a guy that they pulled out of a car and laid on the tailgate of a truck, and his leg, as soon as I seen Aiden Hutchinson's leg that day, that's the first thing I went back to, was like, man, I remember it. And I remember thinking, they're probably going to have to amputate, not as a kid, but like looking back on it, it's like, did they have to amputate that? Like you just about have to, That's, maybe I'm overblowing the Aiden Hutchinson injury, but boy, oh boy, did it just seem like I don't know how people could come back from that quickly, It just seems like it would take a little while for him to recover. As United Bates says, yeah, that's a good point for sure. And again, if anybody can do it, it's Aiden Hutchinson, though. That dude's a dog. I remember him the year that he came out in the draft. He was the number 1 prospect on my board. It wasn't even close. And he was I want to say it's rare you typically get a handful of players that are in the negatives in a good way on our board, because you guys know the low number wins. Like last year, I don't know if I can get this off without spilling my water here, but let's see if we can do it. Like last year's draft, looking at the draft board, we had Ashton Gianti at a minus 1.2. We had Abdul Carter at a minus 0.3. Okay, those are the 2 best players in the draft, in my opinion. I remember the year, and every year you get just a couple of people, a couple of players that are in that range, right? They're in that range where you broke into the negative mark, and those are okay. Those are the elite players in the draft. The year that Aiden Hutchinson came out, it was not just a negative, but he got past, he would have been 1 tier higher than the first negative tier. So he was like a negative 5.8 or something crazy. Just an absolute dog. He was just a slam dunk pick. No 2 ways about that. So, yeah, if anybody can do it, it's him for sure, though. I think many people could have just called it quits there, though, with that injury he had. Moving along here. JJ McCarthy, we talked about Rashee Rice, Tua Tagovailoa, Brandon Ayuk, Chris Godwin. Hey, look, it's Max Crosby. Guy played 96, 97% of the snaps last year, and he's in the running for comeback player of the year. Somebody explain that to me. Like, he was just bad last year. I guess if you're that bad, you can. I guess that's what the award is, right? I guess it is. I think more along the lines of injury, because I remember, Damar Hamlin pretty much lost his life on the field and was brought back to life, to the best of my knowledge. That's, to me, that qualifies for comeback player of the year, right? If anything does. You think of trying to think, there was a couple of different players too that got hurt. Was it Joe Flacco? No, Joe Flacco was kind of signed. He was out of football, got signed in. I think he won comeback player of the year. But typically you kind of associate it with injuries. But yeah, I guess Max Crosby. I just think it's funny that for the people that think he was so dominant last year, why is he in a running for comeback player of the year if he was so good? You know what I mean? It's just still mind-boggling how many fans just thought he was absolutely elite last year. But that's why you got to be careful with PFF grades. Anthony Richardson plus 3,000. I think that fits the mold. Of course, he's got shoulder injuries now, right? Stephon Diggs, he's probably still on a boat somewhere, but he's plus 5,000. Chris Olave plus 5,000. Tank Dell plus 5,000. There's a perfect example. Tank Dell, horrible injury he sustained down there in Houston. So that's one that's kind of prime for a comeback player of the year. You got Christian Kirk and Rashid Shaheed at plus 7,500. Dre Greenlaw would be a good one, plus 10,000, right? And then you got our very own Christian Watson at plus 10,000. Now, here's a problem I got with Christian Watson being on this list. Not that I don't want him on the list, but let's say he comes back, early November, the first week of November. Is that enough time for him to compile enough numbers if he just comes out and doesn't miss a beat to win comeback player of the year? To me, that seems like that's – now, again, this is one of those bets, though, where plus 10,000. This is like Kevin Malone on The Office, right? And John Cougar Mellencamp. Probably worth it, put a little bit on it just in case. That'd be fun to root for, right? But I just don't see that being realistic, because he's just going to be missing too much time. As Greg Rice says here, Watson will be out too long. I agree. I don't think, and even when he comes back, Greg, I don't think it's going to be something where as soon as he comes back, all right, you're playing 40 snaps a game. You know what I mean? It'll probably be easing him back in at 10 snaps. At least that's how I want him to handle it. I don't want him to get him back in there and just, all of a sudden rush him back too quickly and get him hurt again, or even hurt his confidence in that regard, right? Kind of build up some momentum moving back up there. So again, there's comeback player of the year. Christian Watson is mentioned in that conversation. Moving along, most regular season passing yards. So we talked about Jordan Love being 8th in the MVP odds. All right, let's talk about regular season passing yards. Number one, Dak Prescott at minus 115, along with C.J. Stroud, the same minus 115. Then it drops to a plus 500 for Joe Burrow, plus 900 for Patrick Mahomes, plus 1,100 for Jared Goff, plus 1,400 for Matthew Stafford, Baker Mayfield, and Brock Purdy. Then you got Josh Allen plus 1,800 and Jordan Love plus 1,800. Now, we all know Josh Allen runs the football a lot more than Jordan Love, but still, anytime the reigning NFL MVP, whether you think he should have won it or it should have been Lamar Jackson, anytime you've got the reigning MVP and your quarterback in Jordan Love with the same odds on having the most regular season passing yards, that's a pretty good spot to be in, right? So if you look at that, they're saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, tied for 9th. So in MVP voting, we're talking about being 7th. In most passing yards, they're saying 9th. You're seeing a theme here, right? Am I the only one that's looking at this way? Like, it seems like Vegas, and again, whether you're a gambler or not, I think we would all agree they know what the hell they're doing setting these lines. And this is ESPN bet here, but we know how everything kind of ties in together. You're seeing Jordan Love being looked at as a top 10 quarterback, are you not? And it's funny because when you hear some of the pundits talk, you hear some of the national sports media talk, they seem like they're down on Jordan for the most part. But then when it's time to put your money where your mouth is and you go to the betting lines and you look at the early odds, seems like they're kind of high on Jordan Love. Yeah. So curious to see how that turns out, because if Jordan Love does come out and he's top 10 in passing yards and he's borderline top 5 in MVP voting, boys, I'm thinking we had a pretty damn good year, So I'm really, really excited about that. Really excited about seeing what he can do, and especially with the other additions. You got, we talk about Matthew Golden, right? And we've talked, pretty extensively on this show how effective Jaden Reed has been, albeit just another one of those conversations where some people talk like he's just a bad wide receiver, and it is simply not the case. You got Romeo Doubs in a contract year, so he's going to be as motivated as he's ever been. He seems like he's in a good place. Matt LaFleur and him are in a good place, so I don't think he's going to be hindered in terms of snaps or targets or anything like that. I don't think Matt ever tried to take targets away from people, I think it's more about, hey, what team are we facing this week? Are they heavy man? Are they heavy zone? Are they heavy cover 3? Are they heavy cover 2? Are they playing match top principles? Do they like to load the box? Are they weak against the run? All these things, right? That's what comes into play for the scheme and the game plan he puts in and week out, rather than just saying, okay, we need to get that player some targets. And that's why I don't like the whole number one wide receiver talk. That's when I think number one wide receiver, it's great having Davante Adams, and I would love to have him back on the team for the right price. There's no doubt about that. But I think of that 49ers game where Aaron Rodgers was forcing the ball to him there at the end of the game with the wide open Allen Lazard running across the field. But you know what? That's what a true number one wide receiver does. You target him when the game's on the line, whether it's double coverage or not, you're giving your guy a shot. That's typically what number one receivers, those are the type of looks they get. So that's why I'm kind of excited that the receiver room is so cheap. And I feel like we've got some underrated players. I think Matthew Golden could fit that mold. Savion Williams may be better than Matthew Golden. We don't know, right? Obviously, the hands are the big thing you worry about with Savion. And maybe the route running, albeit when we've seen the tape, I feel like his route running is pretty decent for a raw player coming out of college. So, you got Romeo Doubs. If Tay Wicks returns to that rookie form, that would be great. Or just it trends in that direction. You got Tucker Kraft, who I think is definitely a top 10 tight end, possibly a top 5 tight end in the league. Yeah, as Greg said here, how about Kraft, Reed, and Golden, right? I mean, there's a lot to be excited about for Packer fans this year, man. Last year I was very excited about this team. 2022 or 2023 I remember the theme being they expected us to finish dead last in the NFC North. There were so many people that were just, there's no way the Packers, it's just, and it was like, okay, we're playing with the house's money. Let's go. Last year, it was, man, we created some serious momentum, especially Jordan Love. I don't think people realize how good his numbers were the second half of the 2023 season. Like, it was what? Was it 18 touchdowns and 1 interception? Something crazy, right? 71 or 72% completion percentage. Guys, that's stuff that Aaron Rodgers didn't have a touchdown interception ratio that good in his best MVP year during that 9-game span that Jordan Love played in, all while winning a playoff game too, as first year as a starter. So, yeah, just getting some confirmation here. Yeah, Respect Orange is 18-1. Yep, there you go, man. It's wild. So, again, you got to – Solder says it right here. Keep Love upright and healthy while he is hitting 65% plus of his passes will organically solve the Packers' number one wide receiver talk. And, here's the thing too, Solder. I don't know if I expect Jordan Love to hit that 65% mark. I got to do it. I don't have any help in here tonight, but we're going to do it because even if it's a little bit of a delay, you got to do it. It's just tradition around here, right? You got to hit it.
65%. 65%. That's what we
So keep Love upright and healthy while he's hitting the 65% of his passes will organically solve the Packers' number one wide receiver talk. Completely agree with that, Soder. However, I don't really expect him to hit that 75% mark. If he does, great. But to me, it feels like Jordan is probably between 60 to 63%. We're kind of splitting hairs here. And the reason I say that's because Aaron Rodgers, right? Arguably the best thrower of the football in the history of the game. His career completion percentage was 65%. That's kind of the up here, right? So if Jordan Love, like you said, if he hits 65%, yeah, 65% and he of completion percentage and let's say he 30 touchdowns and less than 10 interceptions, Packers are in a good spot because Josh Jacobs is going to do his thing. And that leads us into the next odds talk here, and that is most regular season rushing yards. Here's the list. All right, we got Saquon Barkley at plus 300, Derrick Henry plus 400, Jonathan Taylor plus 800, Christian McCaffrey plus 850, Bijan Robinson plus 1,000, Jahmyr Gibbs plus 1,600, and then our very own Josh Jacobs at plus 1,800. All right. After that, you got Kyron Williams, Ashton Gianti, Bucky Irvin, Chuba Hubbard, however you say it, James Conner, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, Breece Hall, Devon Achane, Aaron Jones. It's always weird seeing senior at the end of that. David Montgomery, RJ Harvey, and Omarion Hampton. So, yeah, you got Josh Jacobs going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, seventh best odds in terms of most regular season rushing yards. So, I feel like that's pretty close to where he needs to be. For me, if Josh Jacobs finishes top 10 in rushing yards and Jordan Love finishes top 10 in passing yards, and he is in the MVP conversation in terms of, even if it is a 7 or 8 mark, Matthew Golden in the hunt for Offensive Rookie of the Year, you're just seeing too many Green Bay Packers pop up consistently fairly high on these lists to not step back and go, boys, this kind of feels like 95. This kind of, and what I mean by that is in 1994, if you go back, 94, Brett got to Green Bay in, 92, I think, if I remember correctly. And then 93, he had kind of a bad year, if I remember correctly, threw a lot of interceptions. And then 94, significant step forward, if I remember right. And they made the playoffs, right? To me, last year kind of felt like 94. This year being 95, now it might not mean a Super Bowl, but 95, Brett Favre wins that MVP. And all of a sudden, it's Green Bay's on a cover of all the magazines. It's just, man, the Packers are off and running, right? Return to Titletown, or return to glory to Titletown, all that stuff. This kind of feels like 95 for Jordan Love. It doesn't mean he's a slam dunk to win the MVP. It doesn't even mean he's top 3 in the chances of winning MVP. It just feels like things are really going to start to click if everybody stays healthy. And then guess what happens next year in 96? And again, I'm not already saying we don't have a shot to win the Super Bowl, but I was very vocal last year. I did not feel like last year you had an opportunity to win the Super Bowl. And caught a little hell over it. And listen, I respect people that are passionate about the Packers and they believe. Thank God you guys exist, that when people like me are looking at it like from what we feel like is a realistic standpoint, I just don't. My big knock last year was like, hey, look, they got the youngest team in the league. I don't see the stars lining up for them to win the Super Bowl. Now, if you had told me going into last year, hey, Clayton, they're going to be second in run defense and have a legit top 10, borderline top 5 defense, I probably would have been like, okay, I could see a Super Bowl happening, right? But obviously turning the ball over on offense hurt us quite a bit. This year just kind of feels like everything. Am I the only one that feels like that, guys? Like this year kind of feels like things are falling into place. Like the window is wide open now because you got a little bit older, if I remember correctly. And we're going to hit some analytics on tomorrow's show, and we're going to talk about them being the youngest team. I want to say their average age last year was like 25.2 years old. And then this year, of course, you add Aaron Banks, who's 27. You added Nate Hobbs, who I think is 27 as well. So you got a little bit older. Mecole Hardman, a little bit older, right? Players like that, if they make the roster, if Mecole makes the roster. We know that Nate Hobbs and Aaron Banks are going to make the roster. There's too much guaranteed money there, right? So it's going to be interesting, man. It's we got a little bit older, and that was part of my criteria. It was like, hey, we need a little bit more veteran leadership on this team. Feel like not that they're like crazy leaders in Aaron Banks and Nate Hobbs, although Nate Hobbs, I think, is going to surprise you guys. Like watching the tape last year, even the coaches' tape, even the All-22, man, that dude was an emotional leader. Like he was a spark plug. And I know he didn't play his best ball. He played his best ball his rookie year. He came out his rookie year and graded out in the 80s PFF. And you watch the tape and you go, yeah, it's there, right? So they've seen what he can be. And really, that's how you should judge young players. I heard Homer say that on the Homer Hour. I don't know if you guys like Homer or not. I know he catches a lot of hell on social media. I guess I'm just old enough to like the old approach to sports talk radio. He is just that loud, very, very opinionated, but passionate fan. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe somebody in here can relate. Like if you listen to sports talk in the early 2000s, Homer fit right in with those guys. Your Jim Rohns, and I know he's still on the air. Tony Bruno, he's still got a little bit of a program left, right? All those guys. It just kind of feels like Homer's like that. But he said you should judge young players based off of their best performance, not their worst. And I think that's very true because these players have got to get their feet under them and they've got to kind of, okay, show us what you can do. Now let's see if we can consistently get you there. But if a player comes out and they just grade out in the 60s or they're just mid-tier and that's the best they ever did, well, that's what you're grading them off of. You're saying, okay, that's what they can be, as opposed to here's where I think they're going to be. That makes sense. So, going to be a Jimmy the Greek. Wow, you're going way back there, brother. I love it. Mike Berry says Homer's all right. I like him, man. I try to watch his show nightly. I think him and Bulaga are good. It's funny watching Bulaga's facial expressions when Homer gets on one of his rants. And I love hearing the interaction between Wilde and Homer. It's always comical. But, I like Homer a lot. So, with that being said, wanted to show these betting odds just to kind of give people an idea of, hey, look, your quarterback is being mentioned like a top 10 quarterback. Your running back is being mentioned like a top 10 running back. Your rookie first-round wide receiver is being mentioned in the offensive rookie of the year talk, right, amongst wide receivers. All these things kind of come into factor, and it's like feeling like we're in a pretty good spot here. This could be the year. This could be the year we take a huge step. I like what Soder says. Soder knows you think a lot like me, Soder, or I think a lot like you. You've probably been a fan longer than me. You try to draw parallels with past seasons, and it's hard to do that, even though the NFL is very cyclical. The game changes so much. That's why I don't buy into the strength of schedule as much, or the DVOA and this and that, because there's some of that stuff's weighted in what teams have done in the recent past, and that stuff don't make a hill of beans, right? But I love looking back in the past and kind of comparing teams. Soder says 1995. Does this mean the Eagles are the new Dallas Cowboys? And what he means by that was like getting beat out by the Cowboys, right, in the playoffs, and then the next year you skyrocket right to the championship, right? So the Eagles could be that new kind of rivalry. And that was a fun rivalry, man. Aikman and Favre with John Madden and Pat Summerall on the call. Oh my gosh, man. Unbelievable. Reggie White rushing the quarterback on one. It's just, those are the players I think of looking back on that. And at the time, like I said, I was not a Packer fan. I was watching from afar because my brother was a Steelers fan. And he was in and out of the military, so he got me watching the NFL when he'd come in on leave. And I rooted for the Steelers because my big brother was a big Steelers fan, and it was the best times. Yeah, I told him that too before he passed away last year. I told him it was actually last summer. We're coming up on we're just 6 days away from the 1 year mark of his passing, and he came up for Father's Day. And my brother, anybody who knows this, he was like a father to me, and that's no knock against my dad. I love my dad. But my big brother was like, he didn't treat me like a brother. It was like a tough love, big bro, kind of like a father figure. And he came up for Father's Day, and we grilled some ribs and smoked some ribs out on the back deck, and we got to hang out there, and he got to meet my German Shepherd. And he's the reason I got a German Shepherd. My boy Lincoln was because my big brother had a German Shepherd, and his name was Ernie, and just fell in love with Shepherds then. But we were sitting out there, and I told him, he said, man, you still watching football? Ain't you still into it big time? I said, dude, it consumes me. I love this sport, man. I love professional football. I said, it's your fault. And he started laughing. I said, and it's like it was out of his mind. He didn't even realize how much it impacted me. But at that time, a tough part of my childhood, and him coming in and talking about going and watching the Steelers and the Rams play in L.A. Back in the day when they were back with the L.A. Rams. I think he got to meet Bill Cowher too at some kind of event because he was stationed in California and it was easy for him to get to that game. But I said, yeah, man, you're the one who got me into pro football. Like, you're the reason. And he he didn't tear up, but you could kind of, it was on his face like, really? Like it didn't hit him. Like, and man, watching football and just falling in love with this game of professional football, it's the reason I stayed out of trouble as much as I did. The little bit I did, I should say. But yeah, it's cool. I'm sure everybody's got kind of those memories of when you fell in love with the game and this and that. But anyway, you think of Brett, watch him from afar. That's where I was going with that, man. It's get to thinking about my big bro and it takes over. Watch him from afar. If the Packers were on, I was watching. I was looking to see snow fly at Lambeau Field, and you knew that the Packers were kind of at the top of the heap, or they were a very ascending team, and it was this fairy tale story of this older franchise that's community owned, and they are just kind of the underdogs battling back into national spotlight. And like I said, John Madden, Pat Summerall on the call, and it was Brett Favre and Reggie White and Leroy Butler and the Lambeau Leap and all these things, right? And then, of course, the Dallas Cowboys were on their epic run that they had there in the early and mid 90s. And I can't remember what year it was. It might have been 95 when Deion signed with them, but it was Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith, and of course, you had the whole circus between Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson, and then them moving on to trying to think of who was the other coach, guys, that came from Oklahoma, Barry Switzer, right? For those of you who don't know, Barry Switzer actually coached Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones in college. Many people don't know that. Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones were college teammates at Arkansas. Jerry Jones played college football at Arkansas, and Barry Switzer was their coach there. So imagine this weird little, I don't want to be a freak show here and say love triangle, but this it's just weird, this football triangle, I guess you could say, where Jerry Jones goes and gets his former college teammate to lead him back to, back-to-back Super Bowls, I think it was, or whatever. And then they have a falling out. He fires him and he hires his old college coach to come in, and he wins the Super Bowl for him, right? The 90s, man, if you guys weren't watching football in the 90s, or maybe you were too young to, it's all documented. It's all on YouTube. Go watch. It's a blast. I'll tell you what you're going to see there. As much as the game has advanced and these athletes have gotten even more just, athletically, freaky, I guess is the right way of saying it. When you go back and watch the 90s, you're going to go, damn, these guys are hitting. I mean, it was to this day when I turn on 90s football, mid-90s, just go type in Green Bay Packers 1995, full game. Type that into YouTube when we go offline here in a minute, okay? It's absolutely wild how everything kind of comes into focus. Like, it's just, you see how the game really took off in the 90s. And it was always popular, don't get me wrong. It was always popular, but the 90s just was like, wow. Unbelievable. That's another great point there. Yeah, Daryl says Barry Switzer coached Troy Aikman in college. So if I remember correctly, Barry Switzer, he recruited Troy Aikman, or maybe he took over Oklahoma where Troy Aikman was, and went to running the option, and Troy Aikman was more of a gunslinger type quarterback. So Troy Aikman went to transfer, and Jimmy Johnson was trying to get Troy Aikman to transfer to Miami, and Troy Aikman told him no. Another good YouTube video to watch is just type in Troy Aikman of Football Life. You'll have a lot more respect for him. If you like hating Troy Aikman, don't watch it because you'll end up loving him after that, that documentary. But he told him no twice, I believe it was, during the recruiting process and then during the transfer process. He told him no. So he ends up transferring to UCLA. But yeah, you're right. That's a good pull there, Daryl. He played for Barry Switzer at Oklahoma. I'm almost positive it was Oklahoma. So pretty wild, man. It's cool how all these kind of stories are intertwined. Yeah. H.E. Soder, why the hell Aikman ever went to Oklahoma is a mystery. Amen to that. He got out of there quick too, didn't he? So I want to say, if I remember on the Football Life, that episode, they were talking about passing the ball, and then Barry Switzer ended up running the option a lot. And that's why on the outside looking in, obviously before the internet, we don't have all the inside information. That's how you look up and go, that don't fit Aikman at all. Although Aikman was an athlete coming out of high school. There's no two ways about that. So, yeah. Wow, Greg Rice says, Starr was my first quarterback. You're spoiled, ain't you, man? That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. So, yeah. All right. There you go. Clint, the armchair quarterback. Joe Montana was my first quarterback. So now we're getting back into it. I just love hearing people kind of tell their story. And yeah, pretty cool. Good stuff, man. Football is an awesome, awesome game. And pro football is just, I love college, don't get me wrong, but pro football is just, there's something. Yeah, if it never gets boring, especially this time of year, grab a good audio book, man. Learn about the game. Learn about pro football. There's all kinds of books written about the Packers, right? There's a great book that I listened to last year on Vince Lombardi, and it's called That First Year. And it basically goes through Vince Lombardi arriving in Green Bay in that first year. And it starts with that I want to say they beat the Bears, his very first game as a head coach. That's a great audio book. Gunslinger is a great one about Brett. There's all kinds of good ones out there. When Pride Still Mattered, that's a great one about Lombardi. Obviously, Instant Replay by Jerry Kramer is a good one. There's just a ton of books. And if you want to get into the X's and O's, look up Bobby Peters. These are great here. I've got a couple of them, and they're more recent. He may have I haven't looked here lately if he's done any more books, but like you've got the 2020, the complete guide to the 2020 Green Bay Packers. These are real cheap too, guys. They're not expensive at all. You can find them on the internet, and there's nothing flashy about them, but man, it's so in depth. And when you're talking about charting plays, let me just give you a glimpse here, right? Charting the plays, and then the play diagrams, and explaining what duo is, explaining what pin and pull is, all those things we talk about on this show, right? So I got the 2020, and then there's also the 2023 Green Bay Packers official offensive manual, complete offensive manual, and they're great. I mean, like I said, you get your money's worth. These are over 300 pages long. It's a blast looking into it. And it shows some of the choice routes, some of the option routes, shows you what they averaged on each play. It's really, really cool design. And you'll see that just how complex Matt LaFleur's scheme is, and more specifically the routes and the choice route aspect, the optional aspect of the receiver routes. And when you read that, that's why I had a little more, okay, I understand why Aaron Rodgers was so pissed off all the time, because they threw him this extremely young receiving core at him. And Matt LaFleur, you know how he is. He holds everybody to high standards. He wasn't going to dumb it down. Like, that's why you had some guys going, there's a guy wide open. Why is he not throwing to him? That's because he wasn't supposed to be there. Well, it doesn't matter. He's open. Throw him the ball. That's easy to say, but as a quarterback, you're off of that spot. Once they're in the wrong spot, you're moving to a guy who's in the right spot, because that play is completely screwed now. And that's why you have people like Kurt Warner coming to Aaron Rodgers' defense on Twitter going, hey, guys, he should have broke that off at 8, not 13. And that's why Aaron had to move off of it. And you can't throw that ball because that's a hospital ball. If he throws that, knowing where that receiver is going to break, he's going to run him right into the safety, all those things. So, yeah. Anyway, get a chance, check it out. So let's see here. Badger Trio says, I hope that documentary Manning Company is making about the history of the Packers for Netflix is good. I trust him, as they are the ones that do the wide receiver and the quarterback show. If Peyton Manning has his name on it, what I love about Peyton, and you guys know Knoxville's just right down the road from me, and he's a big presence down there. Peyton comes across as a very nice guy, and he is. He is a nice guy, both him and Eli and their dad as well. But they know what they want. Like when they called him the sheriff, it's because that guy was in control. So if he's doing the documentary and he's truly as involved as the rumors say, it's going to be good, because he's not going to let them come in and fluff anything up. He is not going to let them. On the surface, he's the silly little whatever insurance commercial guy, right? And he's just this and that, and he's always playing the dumb redneck. Peyton Manning is a freaking brilliant businessman. He's sharp as a tack. And one thing that I love about Peyton, he loves the game of football. He wants to protect the integrity of the NFL. He's just I don't know, just Jim. Thank God Peyton Manning exists. I'll just say that. So, all right, that's it, guys. We're going to get out of here. Just like I said, want to hit on some of those betting odds, see what you guys and gals thought about that. And, we got into some good 90s football talk. Again, go watch one tonight. I thought about doing a watch party. I don't know if we could do it or not. I thought about maybe doing something special for like the Patreon group or something sometime, where we could do a watch party. We can't do it on YouTube, although there was something last year, they were announced that people could do watch parties, and they were trying to work it out to where you could make that happen. I need to do a little digging into that, but maybe we could do a watch party sometime and go back and watch like, 1 or 2 games for the 96 season or something like that. That would be fun. Live stream, watching a game in here, an old school game, and just us hanging out. And we may do a little live streaming this year for actual games as well. We're going to test it out in the preseason if the schedule works out. We will do a live watch party during the preseason games because they'll be a little more laid back. That'll be a lot of fun. So we're going to try to expand the channel in that regard, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So, all right, appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for the kind words. I see them all in the chat. You guys are awesome. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that, buddy. Thanks for hanging out today too. Soder says the 90s Packers could rush with 4. I think the 90s Packers could have rushed with 2, Soder. Probably could have rushed with 1. Just put Reggie out there after the quarterback, right? Now they had other good linemen too. So you're gonna make me go long here. We got to go. All right. So, all right, we're gonna get out of here. Appreciate it. Hey, thanks, Clint. Thanks, buddy. It's hard. It's hard when you're solo. If I was just cutting a pod, it ain't that big of a deal. But I want to have the chat involved, and it's so hard to do it. I'm an idiot, so it's hard to keep my train of thought while trying to read other people's comments and not have dead air. So we need to set more of these up. Next time I go solo, I may prompt y'all in the chat and go, hey, guys, fire some questions. And we'll just kind of answer questions in the chat, that type of thing. So anyway, all right. Thanks, Bates. Appreciate you, buddy. Everybody have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. I haven't forgot about the Kingsley and Enagbare. We're going to give it one more night, okay? So if you're not a member of the Patreon group, now's a good time to get in. Patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. If you're a member of the $3 tier, you're going to see a $3, a $5, and a $10 tier. $3 tier gets you access to everything. The other tiers were for people that just wanted to give more, and it's all about just supporting the channel. And we wanted to do giveaways. We wanted to, kind of give back to those who are supporting the channel. So tomorrow on the show, we're going to take everybody who's in the $3 tier or above, put their name on a wheel, and we're going to be giving away an autographed Kingsley Enagbare rookie card. Really, really cool. It's called Rookie Ticket. And it's by Contenders Optic. It's a really cool piece of memorabilia that was donated by our buddy Rick Kruger. So everybody have a great night. We'll see y'all tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Hit that like button on the way out. Join us over there in the Patreon group. Look forward to seeing you in there. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world. Go Pack.
Here we go.
We're out.
Bye, guys.